Hold up. I was supposed to vote for Hillary Clinton and Tim Kaine. The same Tim Kaine right now that's supporting the Senate banking bill, which has the support of Tim Kaine and 11 other Democrats, which strips away reports that banks have to make, and it's going to apply to banks that give out 500 or fewer loans per year, which constitutes 85% of the banks, which are these community banks, etc. 85% of the banks that are in the nation, that are in the United States, and they're rolling back certain aspects of discrimination reporting to save costs. I'm like, is it not information on a spreadsheet? Because this information doesn't just include race, which was included under fair housing after the civil rights movement, the civil rights era. It also includes things from 2010's Dodd-Frank in regards to predatory lending. So you're going to want to know the race, gender of a person, and as it pertains to race, you're going to want to know what the house is worth, what's the rate of the loan, the size of the loan, is it adjustable, etc. You want those things because of reverse redlining. And Tim Kaine is supporting reverse redlining, even though this is supposed to be the guy that's all anti, all against housing discrimination, right? But I'm supposed to fall in line with the Democrats, right? The same Democrats that can't address the wealth gap, the black-white wealth gap. They'll give you these roundabout answers, such as Hillary Clinton about investments in underprivileged communities, blah, 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 blah. But she ain't really saying nothing, and she ain't saying how she's going to use the bully pulpit of the presidency to press issues and rally Democrats, etc. So I'm not loyal to Democrats. I'm not loyal to anybody. But the thing is, you have to pay attention to what's going on. And the only person that talked about the wealth gap and being redressed for it was Jill Stein, in which I voted for her, even though Hillary Clinton won my state, in which I voted. But I chose to go for Jill Stein, who addressed the history of economic equality for black people, which constitutes the wealth being drained from you due to slavery, Reconstruction, where you can participate in you can participate in Social Security or get GI benefits and the housing issues, and then redlining, Jim Crow, all around at the same time, mass incarceration, predatory lending that's going on now, even though some people do get redressed for that if they sue and if they're able to catch on to it at times, but it's still things that go unseen and becomes a buyer beware situation where you're not fully compensated. But we're still dealing with that old redlining where we couldn't pass wealth down if you were black. Now, let me get back to what's going on today in terms of the Senate banking bill that's been going on this month of March, half this month. That's a problem. That's an issue. And blind loyalty to the Democrats doesn't make sense to me. It's been called out by some groups, including the Urban League. Cool. That's what they're supposed to do. And that's what the public in general needs to do. And if you're black, you need to do that as well. Because the thing is, in black neighborhoods, if it's a black neighborhood, they'll give you a predatory subprime loan regardless of what's going on, and you may not even have the wherewithal to realize that's what's going on because you buy in to the American dream, that mindset that's been indoctrinated into us about doing the right thing. We gotta get this house, and maybe it'll take some crazy turns. They put the crazy fees on you. They'll find some random rent payment you didn't make, and they don't apply that to everybody. They don't dig through all those things, but it's probably going to apply to you if you're black. It can apply to you if you're Latino to a certain extent, especially if you're a non-white Latino, Asians and Native Americans to a lesser extent. When people want to buy these homes, they get caught up in these predatory things with high fees. If they want to add additional months, they can literally just raise the mortgage on you. It's a lot of different things that go into the terms of your mortgage, and a lot of it can be predatory, especially if you don't have the knowledge to comb through it. Get someone else to comb through it. You could look crazy. You might not have access to those people or be knowledgeable enough to know that someone is out to get you. And you can see the discrepancy in the data of how they go about things compared white, black, and other races. But those predatory lending things they do. And the other part of predatory lending is if you're already in said black neighborhood, you're not able to get a loan, home equity loan, so you can actually fix up your house. Like if the kitchen busted, the roof gone, then you're not able to get a loan because they come up with something. And now your house becomes dilapidated, they condemn it, close it down, and then somebody scoops it up, usually white scoops it up, and they have a choice, either to rent it out to people already in the neighborhood, or they'll buy that house, a lot of other houses, gentrify it, and flip it real quick like that. To create a new dynamic where they may rent out to said white person, or these white families, younger families come in, move into that neighborhood, and you're boxed out and you're back in public housing, because a lot of the biggest part of racism, besides somebody being negative towards you socially, which isn't always the case, but the economic impact is the big case, historical case. You can always say, hey, yeah, you know, you're cool with such and such person, different races, white people, etc. I am too, no doubt. But that's not what it's about, really, when it comes to racism. It's about that taking wealth from you because you're black. So you can't own nothing. We want you to be in those public housing where you just get a little bit of government subsidy, you pay out your money, and so you can't build wealth. That's what they want. And since the biggest way to build house, major way to build wealth in the USA is through housing, and people using that money that's in their house to help pay for kids' college tuition, home improvements, etc. And so when you're boxed out like that, and turn out being able to fix up what you have, and not be able to get a mortgage, wherein in your renter paying more than you would a mortgage, you have a problem. And then by being all black and white people, a good percentage of white people not want to live in your said neighborhood, because some may be racist toward you because you're black, and then when they know it's a black neighborhood, they know it's a lack of resources, and the property value drops, so you can easily be upside down in your mortgage, where your house is worth less than what your mortgage is. And not that that can't happen other places during times of recession, but it's hard to recover when you're black, and sometimes it's a permanent spot below white neighborhoods, predominantly white neighborhoods. That's a problem in itself. And it could also, which also lends itself to another point that I don't really want to get into this video, that depending on who you are, you don't necessarily, a house isn't necessarily an investment. Could be more of a domicile. You may need something else, be it index funds, stocks, bonds, CDs, etc., as a term of investment to do the thing that you want to do, as opposed to a house. But this is not the video for that. This is just about basic American values, American buying a home being a source of wealth. And at this point in time, it looks like 1968 out there, really. In terms of the home ownership, it's down to 41%. Looks like 1968. And actually, the mass incarceration is up even higher, 1,700 per 100,000. It used to be 600 per 100,000 in 1968. So it's more than double. He's locking black people up like it's nothing. And that's what you're going to find when you box people out of wealth. You're going to create these situations where you can be more prone to violence over these limited resources. You're going to do worse things for less. It just creates this bad environment. And the redlining extends into businesses. Businesses don't want to come to those black and or Latino neighborhoods. They'll put one store, jack up the prices, or you make you travel further, knowing that you don't necessarily have the income, because when you're black, your income is lower. All things remaining the same, regardless of education. So you're fighting that kind of battle. It's an attack on your wealth. That's what a lot of this racism is from an institutionalized standpoint. It don't matter how cool you are with said, white people in general, socially, etc. They're probably not going to, discriminate against you in a lot of ways. But when it comes to this money thing and these behind the scenes things, which we gotta be careful with as it pertains to wealth. And that's wherein lies the problem. I wouldn't call it racism and all this exclusively a social dynamic, but more of an economic dynamic that crosses over into social, and then just pretty much just take all the money, leech the money out of you, and get something for nothing. Just like slavery, get something for nothing. You do all the hard work, and with housing, you're not being able to own, so you don't have enough for yourself. Just paying it right back out. So you don't have nothing to give to your family, nothing to pass down. You put in said white pockets predominantly. And if you are a person of means that's able to get a decent mortgage, regardless of the environment, because you got it like that, it may not be in your best interest to actually live in a predominantly black neighborhood. If you're black, you may need to go to that white neighborhood. And even if you're poor, you may not necessarily be able to be in said black neighborhood. You don't know the social conditions in, the social climate in every city, but you may be able to get a better deal in terms of a loan if you go to the poor white neighborhood in said location, where there's about 10 to 15% of it is just minorities, and probably 4 or 5% of y'all black. Then y'all have a better chance to go in that predominantly white neighborhood, be it poor, to make your way out of it. So a few black people can get into said neighborhoods. When it gets too many black people in one area, that's when they start targeting you from a banking standpoint with the subprimes, and they're not allowing you to get those get that home equity loan to fix up your place, use for college, for your kids, for college, whatever else you got going on. That's something you always have to be abreast of, because reverse redlining is going on. It was going on before the housing crisis, and after the housing crisis in certain areas. And in some cases, you still have traditional redlining, where you just can't even get a loan, period. and there's nothing you can do, especially if it's in a black neighborhood. So it's a lot of things at play. Like, yeah, we can take black people here, there, in small doses, but then some black people are already together in certain neighborhoods because of the old school redlining. That's why they just kept coming up and raising families, so they congregated in certain areas. And then those communities can't get out of the bad situation in terms of loans and getting loans or being subprime. There's a lot of factors at play. Now, you can live in any neighborhood you want to. I don't care. But what I'm saying is that you have to be cognizant of what you're doing, who's getting into office, hold your politicians accountable, and let them know that it's not okay. Remember that black wealth matters. And of course, Black Lives Matter. And that's the easier thing for the Democrats to do, since in my opinion, they tend to be center right and the Republicans are far right. And that's probably the best you can get out of most Democrats. What about Black Wealth Matters? Because that's deadly and that causes violence and that destroys people's minds and destroys people's lives. So if we can't address the black, white wealth gap, that's a problem. Reparations are owed. March on Fort Knox. The government needs to pay up for a long laundry list of things that they do to you as a black person. And some of those things are being done to Latinos as well, to a lesser degree, and as well as Asians and Native Americans as well. But that's a different story, because some of them still might have contacts from the country of origin, from be it themselves, parents, grandparents, and some people can send money back. And that's when you just have to be careful of when people try to tell you like it's a nation of immigrants. But the thing is, not all of us immigrated. If you're black, African American, you're brought here by force, not by choice. That's the difference. And the way that the Democrats can be kind of lax about open borders is almost like they want to let the United States off the hook. This is my home. This is where I belong. But they want to let them off the hook. If you had these free flowing borders, what are we going to do? Pick another country for all the poor people to go to? And when black wealth is declining, leave a few black people in the United States and everybody else got to go. And you just make this the land of the rich and wealthy, and you have some middle class countries with these free throwing borders between Canada, Mexico, etc., South America. And so I won't have a claim on the United States. So black people have a claim on the United States. Is that what we're doing here? I'm not going nowhere. This is the home. This is where y'all brought me to. This is where I'm at. And it needs to be addressed, because it's a problem. So if you say Black Lives Matter, that also means that black wealth has to matter. And that's what needs to be said. And that's what needs to be put on the forefront. It has to be addressed. March on Fort Knox. Let them know the United States government is in debt to African American descendants of slaves. Black wealth matters. That's my take. I'm going to leave some links in the description as it pertains to these topics that I'm talking about today, so you can read it for yourself line by line, see what's going on, because it's still rough out there when it comes to building wealth if you're black in the United States as a descendant of slaves, descendant of slavery. It needs to be addressed. So hold your politicians accountable. Make sure they address it. Make sure they're talking about it, to stop what's going on now and to redress the past of what occurred. I'm not blind, loyal to anybody. I need to hear what you're talking about and what we're going to do to get that done. How you going to be a bully out there? That's what I'm concerned about. That's my take. Iceberg Jim Mel. Deuces.